essentially that gun manufacturers did not do enough to be liable under the statute.
The first major federal gun safety legislation in decades is now moving forward.
The Supreme Court today handed down a major victory for gun control advocates.
This is an issue that every gun owner should be concerned about, and we in Congress should be concerned about it too.
Any of the justices have determined whether U.S. gun manufacturers can be held liable for crimes committed outside of the United States by Mexican drug cartels.
God, how cool is that?
The Supreme Court just dropped a bombshell that nobody saw coming. A unanimous 9-0 decision that's sending shockwaves through every courthouse in America. This isn't just another court ruling. It's a complete reset of how gun rights will be protected for decades to come. And here's what makes this extraordinary. Even the most liberal justices sided with gun manufacturers against a $10 billion lawsuit. What started as a foreign government trying to sue American gun companies has transformed into something much bigger. The ripple effects are already hitting assault weapon bans, manufacturer liability cases, and state gun control laws across the country. If you care about constitutional rights, the next few minutes will show you exactly why this ruling changes everything. Let's start with what actually happened. The Mexican government filed a massive lawsuit against several major U.S. gun manufacturers demanding $10 billion in damages.
And the United States Supreme Court rejected the Mexican government's $10 billion lawsuit against firearms manufacturers
for contributing to the armed violence of drug trafficking cartels.
The statute itself gives virtual blanket immunity to gun manufacturers, except in certain specific cases.
And today, the Supreme Court said that's unconstitutional. That puts a limit on the right to have a gun.
But public safety concerns must be addressed in ways that are lawful.
Their argument? American gun companies should be held responsible for cartel violence in Mexico because some firearms ended up crossing the border illegally. They wanted American courts to make gun manufacturers pay for crimes committed in another country by criminals who obtained weapons through illegal trafficking. The Supreme Court's response was swift and devastating. All 9 justices, conservative and liberal alike, rejected this attempt to hold American companies liable for foreign crimes. But the way they did it matters even more than the outcome itself. The court didn't just say no to Mexico. They established a legal fortress around gun manufacturers that will impact every similar lawsuit for years to come. The unanimous nature of this decision carries extraordinary weight. When justices as ideologically different as Clarence Thomas and Sonia Sotomayor agree completely on a gun-related case, lower courts pay attention. This wasn't a partisan split decision that future courts might overturn. This was the entire Supreme Court speaking with one voice, sending an unmistakable message about constitutional boundaries and legal limits. At the heart of this ruling lies a federal law called the Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act, or PLCAA. Passed in 2005, this law shields gun manufacturers and sellers from lawsuits when criminals misuse their products. The Supreme Court didn't just uphold this protection, they reinforced it with constitutional steel. They made it crystal clear that no foreign government, activist group, or creative legal theory can bypass these federal protections. The timing of this decision couldn't be more significant. Right now, federal courts are reviewing assault weapon bans in Illinois, California, New York, and other states. These bans are being challenged under the Supreme Court's previous Bruin decision, which requires gun laws to align with historical tradition. Now, with this new 9-0 ruling emphasizing strict constitutional limits, those assault weapon bans face an even steeper uphill battle.
This is big.
Justices ruling this morning it conflicts with the Second Amendment's right to bear arms.
We want to see Congress pass laws that will help reduce crime without infringing on the rights of law-abiding citizens.
There is a difference between states deciding how they want to regulate any number of things versus stripping people of their rights to self-defense.
For the Supreme Court, it's all about language, reasonable suspicion, objective reasonable belief, or probable cause.
We won't see changes overnight, but it's going to be quick.
Think about what this means for state legislators who've been pushing aggressive gun control measures. The Supreme Court just drew a bright red line around constitutional protections, warning that attempts to circumvent federal law through creative legal theories won't fly. States that continue passing laws that push beyond these boundaries are essentially inviting expensive legal defeats. The immediate impact is already visible in lower courts. District judges are citing this new precedent in their opinions, questioning whether existing gun restrictions can survive under this stricter standard. Some courts have paused cases to reassess their approach. Others are fast-tracking challenges to gun laws, recognizing that the legal landscape just shifted dramatically. This ruling does something else that's critically important. It cuts off one of the favorite tactics of anti-gun activists. For years, these groups have filed lawsuit after lawsuit against gun manufacturers, not necessarily expecting to win, but hoping to drain resources and create legal uncertainty. They've targeted everyone from manufacturers to distributors to advertising agencies, trying to make the gun industry too expensive and risky to operate. The Supreme Court just slammed that door shut by unanimously rejecting the idea that gun makers can be held liable for criminal misuse of their products, especially crimes in other countries. They've eliminated a whole category of harassment lawsuits. This isn't just about protecting big companies, it's about preserving the legal infrastructure that makes lawful gun ownership possible.
The United States Supreme Court rejected the Mexican government's $10 billion lawsuit against firearms manufacturers
for contributing to the armed violence of drug trafficking cartels.
Is a massive deal. It directly goes after the ATF's tactics over the last 2 years.
It's all too distant. You can't tie what the gun manufacturers do to the violence in Mexico.
Will allow scrutiny for all gun laws pertaining to everything: assault weapons, age restrictions, restrictions on magazines.
Consider the broader implications. If the Mexican government had won this case, it would have opened floodgates to endless international lawsuits. Any country experiencing gun violence could sue American manufacturers, claiming their products contributed to local crime. The court recognized this would essentially allow foreign governments to impose their gun control preferences on American companies through litigation. The language used by the justices matters tremendously here. They didn't leave wiggle room for future creative interpretations. They established clear, firm boundaries based on constitutional principles and federal law. This kind of definitive ruling from a unanimous court creates what lawyers call super precedent. Decisions so clear and widely supported that overturning them becomes nearly impossible. For gun owners across America, this represents a massive strategic victory that extends far beyond this single case. The ruling strengthens the legal foundation supporting Second Amendment rights by protecting the companies that manufacture firearms. Without a healthy, legally protected firearms industry, the right to keep and bear arms becomes meaningless in practice.
Major decision from the Supreme Court that could have larger implications on gun laws nationwide.
It triggers something in me that something has to be done.
Breaking news from the State House, one of the big bills in front of the Senate.
In a way that under this statute is fair to impose liability on them.
My response to that is that's the same claptrap that they have been using for 20 years.
It's a case that legal experts will be watching closely.
State-level gun control advocates are already scrambling to adjust their strategies. Laws that seemed politically viable last week now face serious constitutional challenges. The calculus has changed for politicians considering new restrictions. Passing laws that clearly violate this new precedent isn't just legally risky, it's politically expensive when those laws inevitably get struck down. The unanimous nature of this decision sends another crucial message about the current Supreme Court. Despite deep ideological differences on many issues, all 9 justices agreed that constitutional boundaries in federal law must be respected. This suggests that future Second Amendment cases might find more common ground than many expected, especially when clear constitutional principles are at stake. Looking ahead, this ruling will influence every major gun rights case working through the federal courts. Challenges to magazine capacity limits, assault weapon bans, and permit requirements will all be argued in the shadow of this decision. Lawyers challenging gun laws now have powerful new ammunition, a unanimous Supreme Court decision emphasizing strict constitutional limits and federal supremacy. The ripple effects extend to the business world too. Gun manufacturers, retailers, and related businesses now operate with greater legal certainty. The threat of devastating lawsuits based on criminal misuse has been significantly reduced. This legal protection allows the firearms industry to focus on lawful commerce rather than constant legal defense. For those who've been following the legal battles over gun rights, this decision represents a turning point. After years of incremental victories and defeats, the Supreme Court has delivered a comprehensive win that touches every aspect of gun rights litigation.
Give us transparency in how you're going to handle them, and if there's a roadmap of what you're going to follow that's more clear, then it's going to be a fair process for everyone.
Basically, they kicked the ATF in the teeth. They seem kind of punch drunk. They seem as though they got the bell rung pretty bad.
So another unanimous ruling from the Supreme Court. Now, this is the most significant Second Amendment ruling in more than a decade.
The Supreme Court has made a decision on the first major Second Amendment case in decades.
The topics ranging from gun rights and private property laws to foreign property confiscation.
From manufacturer liability to state overreach to international interference, the court addressed multiple threats in one decisive ruling. The message to lower courts couldn't be clearer. When reviewing gun laws and lawsuits, strict constitutional standards apply. Creative theories that attempt to circumvent federal protections won't survive scrutiny. Historical tradition and constitutional text matter more than contemporary political preferences. This guidance will shape thousands of legal decisions in courtrooms across America. As we process this landmark ruling, it's important to understand that legal battles over gun rights aren't ending. They're entering a new phase. Anti-gun groups will adapt their strategies, looking for new angles of attack. State legislators will test the boundaries of what's still permissible. Lower courts will interpret and apply this precedent in various contexts. That's why staying informed matters more than ever. This 9-0 decision gives gun rights advocates powerful new tools, but those tools only work if we understand how to use them. Every gun owner, every constitutional advocate, and every American who values liberty needs to understand what this ruling means and how it changes the legal landscape. The Supreme Court has drawn a line in the sand, but defending that line requires vigilance. Future cases will test the boundaries of this decision. State and local governments will probe for weaknesses. International pressure will continue through different channels. The price of freedom remains eternal vigilance, even after victories like this. This unanimous ruling didn't just resolve one case, it reset the entire legal framework around gun rights. By protecting manufacturers from frivolous lawsuits, establishing clear constitutional boundaries, and warning against judicial overreach, the Supreme Court has given Second Amendment supporters their strongest legal position in decades. The challenge now is to build on this foundation and ensure these protections endure. The battle for constitutional rights never truly ends, but today marks a decisive victory. A 9-0 Supreme Court decision that protects American gun manufacturers from foreign lawsuits while strengthening broader Second Amendment protections. The legal ground has shifted, the precedent is set, and the path forward is clearer than it's been in years. That's it for today, folks. See you in the next video.